Okay, now we're ready. You guys ready?
I'm ready.
Let's do this.
It's a ninja legend. When a long sword is on top of a short sword and covered with a red cloth, it means a challenge. No one can turn down the challenge. You're going to accept the challenge? You are in ninja, aren't you?
Hello, I'm Sabrina, aka Bria, aka the artist of the popular transgender themed webcomic Life of Bria. And these days, I've got my very own radio show. This is show number 11, and I'm kind of a little bit on vacation, or at least the closest thing to a vacation that I'm likely to get this year. But I couldn't imagine a better vacation than getting to hang out with two of my very most favoritist people in the world. And it's so rare that we would ever get a chance to have all three of us together in one place at the same time that there's no way we weren't going to do a show together. I have here joining me once again the lovely Jessica Nightmare, artist and creator of the webcomic Manic Pixie Nightmare Girls.
Hello.
And also joining us is our dear friend, and a girl who needs no introduction, the darling artist of the smash hit Assigned Male Comics, the one and only Sophie Labelle. Thanks so much for joining me, ladies.
Pleasure.
So,
I just woke up.
Yeah, we all did. There's a party house over here. We're enjoying ourselves for once.
All right, my place is not really a party house.
Oh, you're talking about it was a party last night. It was nuts. You guys should have been there. It was amazing.
Yeah, there was Seaver Smash Brothers and
There was Doritos.
and Doritos. Yeah, I guess
Ooh.
Doritos means a party.
M&M's make a
Oh,
party.
and deep dish pizza.
Oh yeah, that was great. And you poor kids were waiting around for me and for hours in a car because my bus broke down. And I feel bad I put you through all that, but hopefully it'll be worthwhile now. Because we're all kind of relaxing today. Sophie and I are both basically on vacation here. And with all this heavy, depressing shit that's been going on in the world, I figured we'd keep this pretty loose and chill. And honestly, with just this much awesomeness in one room, we're going to have to hold back our power levels a little bit, or else we might break
Hold back.
Skinner's level. It's probably going to go off the rails if we're not careful. But I'm going to start things off with some hard-hitting journalism because this is a serious show. I'm dying to know, and I'm sure, Sophie, most of your fans are dying to know, what's your favorite dinosaur?
The Diplodocus.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was my my very first word growing up, apparently. But why do you like that one? I think we actually talked about this briefly before.
He's sensitive, and also you can draw his neck with funky colors.
That's key, actually. I think people often, are not creative enough with their dinosaurs, and they don't get expressive enough. And I'll bet those, probably had some displays going on. I love it when they give them, the sail heads.
Oh,
or
yeah.
The fins. What were you going to say?
Oh, well, the Diplodocus can have various fun hats, too.
Mm-hmm. That's key. I think you were on the show, a month ago. Did you answer the same thing, didn't you?
Yes, actually, we have the same dinosaur, but I call them by their scientific name, long necks.
Of course.
I'm not like you Philistines.
Was that from Land Before Time, right?
Yeah, Tom Bluth.
Yeah, I grew up watching that. It was my favorite thing as a kid, but I started to hate it because I'm from Camp Tyrannosaurus. That's my favorite dinosaur. And this idea that a bunch of baby plant-eating dinosaurs could take a full-grown Tyrannosaurus, that's just, come on. No way. It's not...
Well, whether, they could take a Tyrannosaurus or not doesn't make them what my favorite is. Oh my gosh, I don't...
Come on, it's the number one criteria. Can it take a Tyrannosaurus in a fight? The answer is no for every animal. Therefore, Tyrannosaurus is the best animal. It's science.
I guess in some ways that's cool, but but a bunch of velociraptors could.
No, they couldn't.
What about in the movies? They do it all the time.
No, they didn't. They get their asses handed to them in Jurassic Park 1. We don't count Jurassic Park 3 because that's silly.
Oh, what was that one?
3?
I love the third one.
I love the third one too, but come on, Spinosaurus is not beating Tyrannosaurus. It's got fish catching jaws. It's not going to break its neck with that. T-Rex grabs him by the neck in that one scene. It's done.
Yeah, that's right. Oh gosh, That movie was so cheesy.
I
The
love
third
it
one.
so
Yeah, I know, but I like trashy movies too, like that.
Well, that's what's so great about it is like Jurassic Park 1 is a serious movie. Jurassic Park 2, they're like, okay, it's based off the second book. It's going to be Jurassic Park The Lost World. This is going to be like serious, another, real look at dinosaur science in the modern age. And then number 3, they're like, fuck it. Jurassic Park 3, claw marks are the 3 mark,
Yeah,
like it's
Jurassic Park 2 is so awful, but for me, like, it's seen it in the because the first Jurassic Park movie was my all-time favorite movie. When it came out, I, like, kind of, like, I had all the binders and stuff, and I probably, saw the movie 100 times that year.
Same.
So when the second one came out, I was like super excited to see it, and like I'm just like sitting in the theater, and like it's like one of those things where it's like you're watching the movie and you want it to be good, but it's not turning out very good. But then like then there's a Tyrannosaurus like running around downtown like beating up a bus, so that kind of made it worth it.
Yeah, that whole the thing is though, I would like it if that movie ended at the scene where the T-Rex comes out of the boat and it like roars over the view of San Diego. That would be such a sweet way to end that movie. But then you'd miss out on the awesome scene of it breaking the whole city and stuff,
Yeah, just Tyrannosaurus running amok downtown. That's good stuff.
This is the kind of stuff I was kind of hoping to talk about. Just like, I love dinosaurs. They're what get me so freaking pumped. And Jurassic Park was the movie that, like, that was my childhood. So I'm just kind of curious, like, is there anything for you guys that, like, is the equivalent of my dinosaurs? Like, what gets you excited?
Ducks.
Ducks?
Oh, yeah, Donald Ducks. Donald Duck, Scrooge McDuck. The nephews and, like...
Did you grow up watching DuckTales and stuff then?
Yeah.
Was that your thing?
Yeah.
I actually saw the DuckTales movie in the movie theater.
Oh, yeah, me too. I did that.
Yeah, it was kind of funny because, like, I remember it was my friend and I, we wanted to see DuckTales, and his mom and her date wanted to see it because also in the theaters at the same time was that movie Ghost.
Oh my god, yeah.
Was that Patrick Swayze, right? Yeah, like...
was he teaches her to do pottery or whatever?
Yeah. But the DuckTales movie was... too short compared to Ghost, and like so I guess like my friend's mom talked to the movie theater people, and my friend and I, we got to watch DuckTales twice in a row in the movie theater. And
nice job.
Yeah, it was pretty fun.
Yeah, but I wouldn't miss one single episode, and yeah,
of DuckTales?
Yeah, I had to be home for DuckTales, or else it would be like terrible.
Now that's one, I love the DuckTales theme song, and it's great in any language you listen to it in. But I don't know if I actually heard it in French.
I don't know. We have a guitar here in our studio.
Oh my god, are you going to play the DuckTales theme for us?
I don't know. I have no clue. I never tried it.
I'm kind of hoping that'll happen. I'm very interested,
I'll
actually.
Google it.
I had no
I can do that.
real idea that either of you two are terribly like musical. I'm not at all. I'm actually the only member of my family that's not musical. But I'm very interested to know, like, I know, Jessica, you said you were actually in some punk rock bands. So I kind of want to know the story behind that.
Yeah, jeez. Yeah, when I was like, well, in like high school, like, feeling like an outsider, kind of was like drawn to punk rock music. Well, in fact, even earlier, like because I was like 13 years old when the Green Day album Dookie came out, and I know that's like, not really... some people say it's not punk because it's, poser punk or whatever. But, to a 13-year-old kid, like never, before, that album, the only music I listened to was, my parents' like oldie station. And that was like the first time I like kind of like felt like, as being an individual, picking out my own music and everything. And, and I had a crush on Billy Joe Armstrong big time.
Oh, yeah. He was a beautiful man.
Yes. Yeah. And like, but yeah, so like I was super into Green Day, and then, I got their older albums, and I noticed that like, it had this like, little symbol on the back that said Lookout Records, and so like I ended up buying a bunch of other albums from Lookout Records, and just ended up getting into punk rock, and then, my getting an old guitar and joining some friends and, starting some punk bands.
So that's plural bands, like multiple bands you're in?
Well, like, yeah, but only one of them, like, actually went anywhere. Like, I was in this band called the Makeouts, and it was just, like, rock and roll, punk rock music. That was, like, we covered Ramones songs a lot. You
were playing one earlier, weren't you?
Yeah, because I was, I'm kind of rusty on guitar, so sometimes I just try to warm up by doing something that I knew. But yeah, um, one of the members of my bands was like pretty good at schmoozing um, promoters and stuff like that, and so we got some decent shows like playing with bands that we looked up to, uh, which is a lot of fun. And some of the bands that we played with ended up getting famous later, so that's pretty neat.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
What would be a notable example?
oh geez, I don't want to talk about that.
No.
Oh my gosh, it's so
No?
embarrassing.
How come?
I don't know, because I'm embarrassed of everything for no reason. I don't even know why.
It's awesome. I'm absolutely amazed. Like I said, like I'm not musical at all, so I'm blown away by people who like have that capacity.
It's seriously, it was just us smashing power chords.
Well, it's punk, but
Smashing power chords and screaming.
I was in the jazz band of my high school.
Yeah.
See,
I want to
now-
ask, like, how did you get into playing guitar? I know you started in high school. Was it through the school then, or?
No, I just wanted to impress a crush
Aw,
that I had. But
that's pretty.
so I have the DuckTales theme song here in French.
Let's do it.
DuckTales in French.
Uh-huh.
DuckTales plays well in any language. It's amazing.
All right, so can you count, please?
Count? Like,
Yes.
1, 2, 3, 4.
C'est le plus grand boss de toute la ville, Picsou, Picsou. C'est le plus riche de tout Canardville, Picsou, Picsou. Il vaut des milliards en or, en dollars, Picsou, ouhou. En suivant Riri, Fifi, Loulou, ouhou. Nous voulons entrer dans la bande à Picsou, ouhou.
That's amazing. I'm really glad we were actually able to find that. Have you ever heard though, like in Japanese or Punjabi?
No.
It's great. It's still like it's recognizably DuckTales, and it's awesome. It's a catchy song in any language.
Oh yeah, I also that's where I got really into comics through DuckTales.
Yeah.
I was a huge Carl Barks and Kino Don Rosa fan. I have all of their comics.
Really? So I was gonna ask, like, what was the first comic that either of you read? Was it DuckTales for you, or?
Pretty much, yes.
Yeah.
It's funny because as far as I always loved newspaper comics, Garfield and stuff like that. But as far as like comic books go, it was Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Oh my god,
Oh
yes.
my
that-
God.
But
that
you
is
know
it.
the thing was, right, is because like growing up I lived like kind of just down the street from this like comic book shop, and like I'm like 9 years old or 8 years old or something, and like the Ninja Turtles are on the TV, and I'm like, oh yeah, Ninja Turtles are cool. But so I'm wandering around this comic book store one day, and I like see the Ninja Turtles, and like I didn't understand it because like they looked nothing like the cartoons. They all had red masks and stuff like that. And I my parents, not really caring about like checking on what media I'm like, just like bought me this like graphic novel, and it was like of the old original
Ouch.
underground Ninja Turtles comics that were like,
It's in black and white, right? And
yeah, and it was like a lot more adults than the cartoon, and like, and as like a 9-year-old kid, I just thought it was the coolest thing. I was like, and I brought it to school to show my friends. I'm like, look at this Ninja Turtles, and they're like cutting up people, and there's blood everywhere, and
that's
yeah.
such a thing. Like as a kid, you hear the rumors. Like I was always like, a friend of mine, he was from Vietnam. He'd be like, oh yeah, I saw like real Dragon Ball Z in the original Japanese, and it's like so much more violent. Like Goku like kills a guy, like rips him in half or something. It's just like, I don't think that's real, but I guess with
It
Ninja
is.
Turtles it was real.
Well, Dragon Ball, they did it out a lot of gore scenes.
It did
from
have more, I suppose. Yeah, it's
But yeah, I was too sensitive for that. I was really into dogs, and I liked Felix the Cat. Also,
Felix's Cat is great.
and Mickey Mouse. Yeah.
So you're more Disney than Looney Tunes
Oh, yeah.
fan, but you're like pretty pro Looney Tunes, right? Jessica?
I love, just like when it comes to the golden age of animation, like we were talking about last time, I love all that stuff, but I do enjoy Daffy Duck cartoons much more than Donald Duck cartoons, especially like Daffy Duck cartoons from the 1940s before like Chuck Jones like kind of turned him into this, narcissist, back when he was wacky and just having fun. But yeah, like one of my favorite scenes in all movie history is when, Daffy Duck and Donald Duck battle each other, dueling pianos, and Who Framed
in
Roger
Roger
Rabbit.
Oh yeah,
my,
that
that's
was amazing.
yeah, that's like my favorite movie of all time.
We're a little bit spoiled for crossovers now because they just happen so much in comics and everything. But like back then, when I first found out about that, I was like, "What? Those two aren't allowed to meet? That's opposites. That's like
Wait, so you didn't know about Roger Rabbit until like later?
I remember hearing about it as a kid, but I never actually watched it, and it wasn't until I was in art school. I actually studied animation in my first 2 years of art school, and I learned about this, and I was like, "Wait, what the crap?"
That movie could never happen today. Like, cause like it happened in the '80s when like this is like kind of when I guess licensing was a lot more loose or something like that. But oh my gosh, it was like that movie is my favorite movie of all time just because of how great of a send up it is to golden age of animation and how and it's just so funny for any cartoon lover.
I mostly remember being kind of scared as a kid because I was really easily scared. Like I was too scared to watch Beauty and the Beast at all. And actually, as much as I love Jurassic Park, I was too scared to go see it in theaters. And that scene where he those poor shoes, he puts them in like the tune dissolving acid or whatever.
Oh no!
It's the worst.
I
couldn't watch that. I was too scared.
No. Christopher Lloyd played. Yeah.
Oh my
Yeah.
god.
Christopher Lloyd is such a good bad guy in that.
I forgot that was Christopher Lloyd.
Oh yeah.
You have Doc Brown there.
Yeah. It's like so funny because like I liked that movie too as a kid. So like seeing him as a bad guy, like.
Actually,
Yes.
I was pretty much influenced by how many scenes of cross-dressing there was in a series. That was a big thing for me that influenced my love for a series. Yeah.
What would be the first one that you encountered of that sort of thing then?
Well, first one that I encountered, I can't really say. I know there was a lot of it going on in Yogi Bear.
Really? Oh yeah, of course, yeah.
And
remember there's a Jetsons episode I saw pretty young as a kid where it was like I think George had to dress up as a lady to pretend to be a secretary or something.
Yeah,
it's always so funny. Like in movies, it's always like when like men put on women's clothes, it's always for like they're forced into it for some reason.
Yeah.
It's never because like I want to be pretty. It's always because like they have to fool somebody into like or just or like Disney's Robin Hood where like Robin Hood wears all these disguises, so of course they're gonna like put on women's clothes at one point. Because like I don't know, people just think that kind of stuff is funny.
I just felt it was so cathartic as a kid, to just see it on TV, even though it was always in a negative light.
Oh, yeah.
That really eased it.
Any little glimpse that we get, as we're so hungry for like this expression, this thing we have inside ourselves, we don't really understand.
Wait. We've been talking for 17 minutes, and you didn't even mention that we were like transgender artists.
So
I think
no, but it's because we've been talking about it.
Well, it's newsflash, by the way, anyone who's listening didn't know. We all happen to share a similar trait and set of experiences, but honestly, I think like one of my things with this show is I mostly like talking to artists, and it just so happens that the scene that I'm in and what I'm operating in is a lot of trans people, and I think trans representation is important, but we're artists first and foremost, and
no, I'm trans first according to everyone else. So do you ever feel that where like you feel like it's like even when it comes to like my comics, right, it's just like all my most popular comics have me venting about like what transphobic issues that I deal with.
I feel that the fact that I'm trans gave me a chance that if I was cisgender, I wouldn't have had. I probably wouldn't be where I am today if I hadn't been trans. So I kind of feel like I owe something to the community somehow.
Well, it's like a very serious issue that I think people are hungry for more representation on and more discussion of, and it's important work that I think we end up doing. Especially maybe you too. But like, it gets frustrating where, okay, this is an important thing, and we wanted to give back to the community and make change in the world, but after a while you're kind of like, there is more to my life than this, and all my most popular comics end up being about trans stuff, but I also like drawing comics about ducks or dinosaurs or like but stuff.
At the same time, it kind of negates this idea that I try to convey through my comics, that you can reach humanity as a whole through our singular experience. So why couldn't we be able to go like into general stuff through transness? So like there's this there's often this idea inside trans communities that when we're talking about transness and trans issues, it's mostly talking to trans people themselves or to educate non-trans people.
Mhm.
But what I feel is that you can really reach humanity as a whole through our singular experience. So I don't see why we couldn't do that by talking about trans issues.
I think
it's really funny you say that because like my comics like came from a place of like frustration. Like I wasn't trying to educate cis people, or I wasn't even trying to like make comics to have other trans women like feel validated. Like literally all of, like it all started just like because I selfishly was like needed to vent about the stuff that I was dealing with.
that's how I started.
Yeah, I wasn't trying to like do anything or be education or even try to create community. But in fact, like it was at a point where like I really thought I was like in the wrong, because like I would say the stuff that I was saying in my that I ended up saying in my comics, like talking to individuals, and like I'd get a lot of pushback from family and stuff. Oh, like for like you know the one of the biggest things is just how like even though somebody doesn't think of themselves as a trans misogynist, they could even be a trans advocate, be like into radical politics, but they just like when it comes to dealing with a trans woman, they're just not going to take us as seriously, or just like or just like try to find something wrong with us or what we're saying, or it's just like there's this like thing where it's that we can't be right. But then as soon as I started making my comics, like people are all like, "Oh yeah, now I agree." I'm like, "Well, why didn't you agree when I was saying it to you?"
But
Yeah.
also
Yeah,
there's,
before.
there's this very strong pressure too for trans women not to talk about those issues from society. From I got it a lot from my family when I started doing activism about a decade ago. People in my family were like, well, you don't need to talk about it. You could just like stop advocating for yourself now that you've transitioned.
Oh yeah.
It should be fine by now.
That's so funny because like my mother said the same exact stuff. I remember because like she was like talking about, because my aunt, she used to be a counselor for people who struggle with drug addiction, and dealing with people on the street, and she knew quite a few trans women, and but so my mother was saying, when I started like kind of complaining to the family about like the way they were treating me, um, uh, my mom would just be like, "Why do you have to be so open about being transgender? Why can't you just?" She's all like, "Look at you, like you're small. No one can see that you're trans. Just be quiet about it, And your aunt, she has a friend who's transgender. She doesn't tell anyone. She has a boyfriend." And I'm like, "Mom, do you want me to have a boyfriend now?" Like, it's like, yeah, it's like so funny how people just like they don't want to hear it,
Yeah.
and they'll find any excuse to like be like, it's anything except their own trans misogyny, they'll, um, but yeah, and the thing is, I don't even consider myself an activist. Like I'm just like complaining about this stuff, like based on my experiences.
Yeah, well,
It's not even me like trying, like I'm not trying to like change minds. I'm just like, talking about my personal lived experiences.
that's something my comics brought me because, as I was saying, I've been implied into activism in Montreal for a couple of years, and my comics really allowed me to step back because it was just getting very overwhelming for me, and but it kind of fed itself since I was seeing that a lot of the community based knowledge that was being shared in activist circles wasn't going past it. It wasn't. There was a lot of.
It was like staying with the trans activist community and not getting to other people who needed it or who needed to hear it.
Yeah, exactly. So that's my starting point, but it really allows me to step back and yeah, see the overall portrait, and I feel a lot more at peace with activism now.
Really?
Yeah, it was making me very anxious and very you know I was always in contact with the press, the media, and it was very overwhelming.
When did you start that then? Actually, this is something I don't know a whole lot about you. Like, what point did you start activism? Like, what age were you?
When I came back to Montreal, actually, that's 7 years ago.
Wow. And you were like, just like involved, like what, like rallies and whatnot, or like what sort of activities did you do?
Um, I was writing mostly blog articles, and
Oh,
then it got a lot of attention since I was talking about education mostly because I
yeah.
was
Teacher background, right?
yeah, and yeah, it got a lot of attention this way. So I was given this platform that I used for diverse diverse causes, mostly environment and
That's the other
so
thing. There's so many issues that, like, I'm sure we like to talk about. Like, my other big thing is, like, I'm kind of into animal rights. When have I ever talked about that, right?
that's
We don't
right.
get a
That's
chance
right.
to talk about it. And, like, there's all these other issues that we also care about, but they kind of end up getting superseded by the whole trans thing.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Like, honestly, like my personal biggest, like, say if I were any kind of activist or advocate, it would be for, Medicare for all, universal health
Yeah.
care. That's like my number one thing, is healthcare. But because I'm transgender and, like, I've experienced trans misogyny, like, in the workplace and in social life and in family life, that's what people listen to me about. Even though, like, I experienced depression because of our healthcare system,
Oh, yeah.
too. But, like, but yeah, there's just something about being trans that, people want to hear you talk about trans stuff, you know.
You know, it's really funny. I was the first trans person to run for in a riding in a general election in Quebec.
Really?
Yeah,
Oh my
people
God.
don't know that because I talk about my comics, I talk about trans issues, and I'm not that much into like provincial politics now,
Mhm.
but
It's
that
so
totally happened.
just recently, a woman out of Vancouver, Morgan Ogre, she's been nominated for NDP seat. That was at the New Democratic Party
Yeah,
in
I heard
BC.
that.
Yeah, big deal. But all these people kept saying, like, oh, she's the first openly trans person to be nominated for a major party. And I'm right, no, that's
Nominated,
not
no.
true at all.
Well, maybe in the
But
federal election, that's possible.
I'm not sure. I don't even know if it's provincial or federal that she's in, actually, to be
It's
honest.
probably provincial because we didn't hear it in Quebec.
Yeah, but no, kudos to her. That's great. But it's sort of funny that I think people, they love the first, first
Oh
trans
my
person.
god.
Like, they want to, we're breaking ground just by what existing or whatever, which is a little bit true.
But that happened. That totally happened. I
Yeah.
ran for a party.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Which party was it?
Option Nationale in Quebec. It's one of the major party. It's not the top party. It's actually kind of new. It's mostly leftist, independentist
And
party.
were you like you full on? You ran and were in an election and people voted and stuff for you?
Yeah.
Nice.
That was fun. I had my face on
That's amazing.
in the streets.
I'd vote for you, Sophie, if I was up there.
And this was provincial also, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Huh. This is kind of all making me wonder. I wanted to ask, like, what was the specific catalyst that got each of you to start drawing your webcomics that you do now today? Because we've all been drawing comics forever. But what was the thing that caused you to draw, say, a Sign Mail or Manic Pixie Nightmare Girls?
Like, I don't know, did we talk about this last time I was on? But,
I'm talking generally, but, like, was there a particular thing that caused you to start doing it?
well, it was, like, honestly, like, the thing I was, like, most mad about was, like, the whole employment thing because, and by the way, like, I don't, like, so, yeah, I was, like, working at a job, and, it was just, like, I was doing this job for over 10 years, and I was doing it well, and, you know, after I came out and transitioned, like, first they transferred me to another location, right? They're like, okay, we want to give you a fresh start, and they let the new management know that, like, I have this great history with the company, and, it was like, I've never been written up or all this other stuff, and, like, almost immediately I just, like, noticed, because, like, especially, like, this is at the beginning of, my transition, like, everyone knew I was trans, and it was just, like, this hostility, and it was just like this, and it's like it's not like this super open hostility where people are just like, like obviously angry. It's just like kind of like subtle, like, any little thing that, like, any little hiccup that would happen that would normally happen, to any worker would just like seem like it would just like, count as double against me. And so like they just kept transferring me, and everywhere I went, I like, was experiencing the same thing, and then I got into a location where like everyone was cool, and there's actually other transgender people who work there, and like then I was at that location for 3 years, and then like that place shut down, and they transferred me to another location, and then like the first week I got called a tranny, and then like yeah, and then the whole thing like got, it was like it went from like the you know, kind of subtle trans misogyny into like, it was just like, everyone breathing down my neck. They just wanted me out of there. They didn't like me. And it was so weird because I never experienced that before I transitioned ever. Like, I get to a job and I, try my best to do a good job. And I usually do. But that doesn't matter. And it's like, I'm sure, your listeners have experienced this. Anyone who has a job, there's always a scapegoat at a job. Human beings love scapegoating each other. Just like, like there's always like this person that at work in the workplace who's getting a hard time for basically no reason other than they might be kind of annoying at most, or they like fumble up, or like, in the show Parks and Recreation, they have that Jerry character. The joke is that Jerry is a nice guy. He does a pretty good job. He's like a little clumsy or whatever, but like everyone just hates him for no reason, and I basically became that at my job. And so I ended up losing that job. And then like, and then it happened again, like at my next job, like, because I, decided to go into my next job just being like out and open about being transgender. And it was like the same thing. I was being held to these different standards, you know, and like literally like, my coworkers would make a mistake and there's zero consequences. I'd make the same exact mistake and I'd get talked to about it. I ended up losing that job too.
Is it a little bit like the trans broken arm syndrome, where a doctor will like blame whatever affliction you've got on you being trans? Would be the same sort of thing almost, like,
well, almost, except they would be denying that, like,
of course you don't openly say it.
they're just giving me a hard time for being trans. And then it's just like this thing that I noticed, like, just kept going. It's not just in the workplace, it's like in activism too. Like, you see it's like, trans women are held to a higher standard. It's, like, if you're on the internet a lot in social justice circles, it just seems like a trans woman is being called out like left and right when other people get away with the stuff that trans women get called out for. And it's just like so damn obvious that like, like we're being held to different standards, but like the people who are holding us to different standards will, just deny it. They can't see it, or they don't want to see it because they don't want to think of themselves as trans misogynists.
Oh, because they're forward thinking progressive people,
no,
right?
absolutely.
They could never be.
And that's the thing. I usually just wish people just could just muster up the humility to be like, oh yeah, maybe I do have this bad gut reaction, because that's what it is. It's just like people have bad gut reactions.
So that's how you started your comic?
Because of all that. And then like at the same time I was dealing with family stuff, and then like because you see like a lot of early Manic Pixie Nightmare Girls comics are like about the workplace.
I think it's a number one thing I think a lot of people are concerned about. And a lot of people were super pissed about, I guess it was activism efforts in the States kind of thinking about compromising on the whole bathroom thing and trying to ensure LGBTQ employment protections. Because, employment's a pretty important thing. And it seems to be a number one thing. Like, if you can't find a job because people are discriminating against you, like, how are you going to function as a person? And all these other people who defend the discrimination stuff, they're just like, oh, I'll just go find another job. Like, yeah, I'll just magically find another job because it's so easy to do that. Like, it's...
and then connected to this whole thing that I was just saying is like, now we're getting blamed for like, this, right wing backlash. It's like the idea that like trans people using public restrooms is so extreme that that's the reason why they voted
Oh, yeah.
Republican, as opposed to the fact that like no, they're racist and they liked their racist rhetoric, and that's what made them vote. But seriously,
Well,
there's
it's
like you see
scapegoating
liberals.
again.
Yeah, you see like liberals on TV like that. Saturday Night Live news show was like, basically saying, different genders is the reason why Trump won.
Oh, the turfs also.
Yeah, yeah. Oh,
went
no,
on
of
to
course,
that.
and and it's just like. Yeah, but even in it's not just liberal scapegoating.
Oh, yeah.
It's like even more radical people scapegoats. It's just like we're like I feel like trans women are viewed as like the garbage pail kids of humanity. We're just like gross and disgusting, and people don't want to say that out loud, so they just get angry with us over any little thing they can.
It's an unfortunate fact of a lot of life. I don't know.
But yeah, Sophie, how'd you start your comments? That's what we were talking about.
Oh, right. Mainly for two. Well, there was two events that led to my comics being published. And the fact that I started my comics at this specific time. I was just coming back from this camp for trans and intersex children that I've been organizing in Quebec.
You do that still?
No, that only happened in 2014.
Okay.
But yeah, the media really got interested in it, and I was, the media kept harassing me for interviews for that camp, and I really saw how negative the message was surrounding trans people's bodies, and all the efforts that we were doing with those kids' parents were kind of neutralized by how negative the medias were about those kids' bodies, and I spent basically like 6 months before this summer camp, just thinking about all this and thinking what could I do for that, and the fact that we were talking about kids specifically really made me I don't know, it really made me aware of how violent this was, because it's a thing to say things about adults' bodies, but when we're basically telling kids that their bodies are wrong, I don't know, there was something more violent, since that's something
It's
I
a
don't.
shitty thing to do to a kid. Like when would it ever be appropriate to tell
I know,
a
but
kid
somehow we do that in the media all the time, and that got me really pissed. So couple of months before the camp happened, I started thinking about what could I do after the camp to, keep advocating for trans empowerment and trans body positivity like that. And so that's how I came up with my characters. And that's mainly the reason why they are children, because I specifically wanted to address this aspect of it. But also that, I was just working on it. It was just a vague art project. Like I had hundreds of them before that never actually happened. But then there was this big scandal in Montreal in summer 2000. Well, it was a scandal inside trans communities and inside queer communities, because Pride Montreal, those who organized the big festival in Montreal, it's one of the biggest in North America. So
really,
and the president said very transphobic things about flamboyant gay men, about how we need to look normal, and it was just a coincidence, but the only two what was the name of when there's the march,
the Pride rally, or
what's it called? On wheels.
Oh, parade, the floats.
Floats, yes. The two only floats that were from a trans organization were completely behind at the complete hand.
They were,
after all the gay organizations, all the sponsors and everything, they were just really,
Afterthought.
yeah, and it and the fact that the president said those, very, very regular transphobic stuff we hear from said LGBT leaders. We hear them all the time, but I don't know. It was just like the drop that was too much, and yeah, actually, when he said that, it was a couple of days before the big event on Pride, and I decided to, start my webcomic.
Right then?
Yeah, so the first strip in French was actually released a month before the webcomic in English, because I was eager to, I needed to publish it on time for the big Pride event. And so that's really how I actually started it. Otherwise, I'm not even sure if I would be doing this right now.
I think that's one thing that's amazing about your strip is the fact that you do it in both French and English. And it's also translated Spanish, and then it's got German translations too, though, right? And a few other things have been books have been translated too, right? But how many languages is your comic in right now?
Right now, 11.
It's nuts. But routinely it gets published, when it goes out on your website.
It's English, French, and periodically Spanish.
Huh. That's amazing. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, that's really cool. I only speak one language. It's American.
Right?
Hey, we have questions from the audience.
Sure, let's go for it.
Okay, you choose.
Whoa, there's questions from the audience.
Yeah.
People are listening live right now. Oh, that is scary.
One question for, of course, I guess, let's take this as a general question, but it's on Sophie's page here. How long does it usually take you to write a comic, from concept to inkwork to publishing? Also, I love you.
Aww.
You can start.
I can. Well, the question was for you, not me.
No, we both answered those questions.
Okay. Let's see. Let's see. How
long does it take you to do a comic, usually, kiddo?
Oh, jeez, it depends. Sometimes, I'll have something bouncing around in my head, and it could, go on for weeks before I actually start drawing it. But, depending on my depression levels, if I'm feeling good, I could, knock out, a 4-panel, full-color comic in just a couple days, 2 days, sometimes, if I'm really on fire and super manic, I could I could get one out in one day. But sometimes, I'll struggle with a punchline, or I'll have a punchline and I'll struggle with how do I start it off, and then that will bounce around for a little while. In fact, there's tons of unfinished comics that I have. Oftentimes I'll start a comic and then I just think it's great at first, but then I something clicks, and then I decide that it's the worst thing ever, and I abandon it halfway through. And when the actual inking and coloring is, for me, the easiest part. Thumbnails and getting the poses down is a little more difficult for me.
It's a lot of thought involved with that part. That's the real work too. I think.
Especially because I just keep holding myself to this high standard of I keep comparing myself to all these professional cartoonists that I look
You are
up to.
Professional cartoonist.
Oh yeah, I'm sorry.
It's your job. Stop it.
Okay. It's okay. I keep
legends.
Yeah, people who I consider master cartoonists. I try to hold myself to that standard, which I know I shouldn't.
You know what? It's a little good that you do, because it pushes you. I know it's a hard balance to find between always pushing yourself to be better, but also being satisfied and happy with the fact that how good you are. But if you get too comfortable with how good you are, then you're not going to get better. But if you ride yourself too hard, you're never going to be happy either.
Too hard. But the thing is, too, it's not only do I ride myself too hard, but then I do nothing to make it better. Sometimes I'll go forever without actually practicing.
Mm-hmm.
Right now I feel I need to buckle down and because I could draw my the main character in my comic really well, but then I try to draw other characters or make up a new character. I'm I don't know what I'm doing. Yeah. This is awful. Ugh.
It's hard to get a chance to expand your art, make a good portfolio piece or develop a new skill when you've got a regular project you work on, like a comic.
Yeah.
And Sophie, I know you work crazy hella fast, but how long does it take you typically to do a strip?
That really depends on how prepared I am. I usually write my storyboards couple of weeks before, and I usually take a whole day to write as many as I can, so that when I'm traveling a lot, getting a lot of talks, and also I'm taking vacation now, and but when I'm traveling, I can't really concentrate on storyboards, so it needs to be in a very neutral state of mind, and so once this is done, during in a day of working on storyboards, I can produce maybe like 20, 30 pages. I don't do all of them. There's this natural selection that happens since I basically draw my comics the day before I publish them.
Mhm.
That's what I'm gonna do tonight.
Yeah, that's what I gotta do.
And I usually go through my sketchbook at that time, and I just pick one for the next day. So there's this selection that happens where I just pick the one that I feel is the one I want to draw at this moment. But after that, then I digitalize it. I work on my graphic tablet, and
So just to be clear, you're doing all your thumbnails in your sketchbook
Oh,
with
yeah.
real, honest to God pen and paper, but then final strips are all done purely digitally, right?
yeah, mostly because when I'm drawing my storyboards, if I have a phone or a computer with me, you can be sure that I'm gonna spend the whole day on Facebook.
Yeah, get distracted. I feel
I need the paper to really be able to concentrate. And once I start drawing on the computer, from inking and coloring can take maybe 4 hours.
That's
4 or
amazing.
5
Yeah,
hours.
she's so fast, and like, oh my god, I don't know how. I wish I could be that fast.
Yeah, it used to take me a whole day because at the beginning I was painting everything and scanning it and like coloring it with my mouse.
Oh my God.
I know.
Caveman.
Yeah, don't say that.
But you know what? That's my standard joke I go to. Or sometimes I say like Amish people.
yeah,
Or
but
like
I
an
think-
animal.
I think
like,
when I started my comics, we got in touch, me and Jessica, because we actually started our comics a week apart.
Yeah,
Really?
around the same time. Well, like, yeah, mine was. I mean, like, I've been drawing comics for a long time, but like, I started doing Manic Pixie Nightmare Girls on a regular basis. Like, the first one came out like July
Yeah, and I
Early
started
July.
in August.
of
like
what
that,
year?
2014.
14?
14.
Yep.
Was it 14?
Yep,
Yeah,
yep.
14.
Okay.
And so, yeah, I remember you telling me that I was a dinosaur, actually.
Oh, doing it the old school way?
Because, yeah, mostly because most of my friends from high school went into art school. And so when they did that, everybody started getting tablets and stuff, and I was still drawing all my comics on paper, and I was just like, well,
The first year
I was kind of an art snob back then, and I was like, well, this is not real hard,
Yeah.
digital art, and so yeah, I had to overcome this
Mhm.
aspect to because it got a lot of visibility, and I couldn't make up with my own rhythm, so that's
Mm.
when I bought my first tablet.
Yeah, all the early Manic Pixie Nightmare Girls comics were drawn on paper too, and like it was so funny because like it's like so many of my favorite comic artists will like draw like all their panels on one page and like all the drawings look great, but because like I'm not or wasn't professional yet, I would draw one panel on each page, and then like I would like scan it into the computer and then color it with the mouse and stuff like that.
You have to call me a dinosaur because I still do all that. I still draw everything with real pen and
You
paper.
just want to be called a dinosaur.
I guess so, yeah. But I also do the same trick. I like to draw things out separately because it just gives me more freedom. And
I actually put a lot of care in the rhythm. That's one of the aspects that I try to be the most focused on. So I need to have the whole picture together, and it starts when I do my storyboards, where I really work on the kind of flow through the comic. So I usually draw the whole thing together.
A lot of times I feel like that's the most important part. Like some of my very favorite comics, like in my head, I didn't even have a joke or even any content for the actual comic, but I would have like the rhythm and like the timing down of
Yeah.
the comic first, and then I'm like, okay, now I have to fill this in with content, like I'm like, oh, this would be funny if it just like went like this, oh, and then like and then you think it's going one way, but then you punch this way, and like, and then later I'll fill it in with whatever content.
And we only have 10 minutes left.
Oh,
Sometimes
we can even go as long as you want. Don't worry.
Sometimes I even will base a whole comic strip around one drawing. Like, I'll just be doodling, and then all of a sudden I'm like, whoa, this is a really good drawing. I'm like, how can I work this in?
Yeah.
Like, one of my I mean, it's one of my less popular comics, but it's the one that I like more, where Jessica is, telling a joke to Slightly. She asks her, it's like, hey, how do you make pickled bread? And the punchline is dildo, and that one started out. I know, right? But that one started out with me doing one drawing and liking that one drawing. So I'm like, oh well, I guess I'll just try to figure out. Jessica telling this this joke, and then just thinking it's funnier than it really is.
So my brother would call a long walk. You really went out of your way to get that drawing in. I guess while we got some time left, let's try and knock out at least a couple more of these fan questions here.
Oh, yeah, sure.
They took the time to write them. Let's see if we can get some more happening. There's some really adorable ones here. There's one that actually really stood out to me here, though, is like, how did you learn to draw and develop your own comic styles? Like, Jessica, you've got a really particular style. You're into the classical animation, but what was like your main influence, and how did you get into that?
Growing up, the original thing that made me want to be a cartoonist was The Simpsons. And I was like 9 or 10 when that first started, and then like the next year the Ren and Stimpy show came out, so it was like kind of a mix between I just love those drawings, and like in fact I was a young dumb kid, and I later the series all the people who were doing the drawings I liked stopped doing the show, and like as a kid I was like, why aren't the drawings as good anymore? I don't get it. But yeah, like that kind of stuff was like my first earliest influences. Yeah. But then like as time went on, obviously you just get like more and more influences. Every year I feel like I'm influenced by, other cartoonists. I just like nab ideas from other cartoonists. I'm like, oh, that's a good idea for a way to draw the, characters and stuff. As a teen, I really loved Jonan Vasquez. He's the guy who created Invader Zim and John the Homicidal Maniac, and then obviously I also like Shmorky K. They do the comic book Hug, and I just like they're one of my favorite cartoonists right now.
I told you that, but the first webcomic I really got hooked on was Purple Pussy.
Yeah, no, Shmorky's
and that was when I was
such
13.
A good cartoonist.
I started doing my home webcomic after Purple Pussy. I was just inspired by it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. They inspire so many, and they're actually, they're trans as well.
Really?
They go by they.
Huh.
And I didn't know that back then. That was really funny.
Yeah, in fact, some of the comics they touch on those issues are so touching. And then talk about prolific. They just like are pumping out comics so much, and and oh gosh, I wish I could just do that. That's like the point that I want to be at, is just like being able to pump them out, and just like just have a huge collection of comics. Like, it would be nice if I could post 3 times a week, but. So mostly,
who does that?
I know a lot of people do. Yeah, Katie Wrights, who does Camp We Don't Watch It, does twice a week. But for a while, she was also doing another webcomic. And these like are fully, drawn and beautifully colored, beautifully rendered comics. Pumping them out 3 times a week. It's
in her case, I know her husband helps her write it, though, right? Like they write it together.
Yeah.
So but maybe that helps you get high work.
Flow. That's funny you say that, because I always work better too when I have like hanging out with you guys this weekend. I just like want to draw more and more.
We're gonna do that, don't worry.
Alright, so what was the question again?
Oh, so how did you develop your art style though, Sophie?
Okay, well, Ducks.
Ducks, yeah. Because you read a lot of DuckTales.
Yeah, and but also I was part of my brother's comic club that he started.
That's right. Yeah.
When I was 7, I started making comics for that comic club, they didn't see like the air apostrophes, right? um, and yeah, I was using my brother's characters, and so that kind of forced me to develop a certain style that was very influenced by European artists, because being French, having French as a first language gives me access to a lot of comics
There's
that you
some
don't even know about.
amazing French comics out there.
And so yeah, that really influenced me. I can think of Spirou and Cedric or Asterix. That really was my childhood environment, and that's where I kind of took several parts from several people and put them together until I had my manga phase, starting at 11 with Ranma and a Half, and then going on with Sailor Moon and Fruit Basket and Cardcaptor Sakura, stuff like that. So I feel my style really became a mashup. Like I've got like some traits are really from Japanese animation, and you can really see it, I think. But at the same time, there's this European influence, I think.
In your backgrounds and your coloring, a lot of it's very, I don't know, it's got this beautiful European style to it.
Yeah, you're really good at
It's
drawing
refined.
value and shading. It's something that I need to get better at.
Well, that's funny because it's my friends that studied in animation that showed me how to do that, because I studied in elementary school teaching, and I just sucked all the knowledge I could from my friends.
It's the way to do it. You learn faster than going to school. There's some questions here talking about starting out, and I want to ask you guys anyways, the advice you have for artists starting out.
Ooh.
I start.
Okay,
Sure.
go.
Find an audience. That's really the only reason why I'm still drawing. I've been, as I was saying, I started so many art projects. I started several comic series, several web comics, but I was just doing them for me and my friends. But at a point, there was no pressure to do it, and I work under pressure. So I kind of need to have this schedule. I publish 3 times a week at 10 on the East Coast, on every Monday, Wednesday, Friday morning, and that's really what grounds me. That's what pushes me to keep doing it.
Oh, yeah.
Otherwise, I would take breaks every day.
Yeah, having a regular schedule, I've often heard, is very important.
But having the pressure from the audience is really important to me.
My advice would be just to is finish your work, no matter what. Just figure out a way to get it on paper and finish it, and don't dwell on it. Like so many, you'll have an idea and you'll just keep thinking about it, and you don't want to do it because you want it to be perfect, and you don't finish it because you think you're not gonna. You'll always figure out a reason not to finish it. It's like, oh, I once I get better at drawing, then I'll finish it.
Yeah,
or once I, have the perfect punchline, then I'll finish it. It's just like, just keep throwing crap on the wall and see what sticks.
Yeah.
And just finish. Like, no matter what, just, finish it and then move on to the next one. And you'll think, you'll think your current idea is, the only idea that you'll ever have. But I swear, more ideas will come. You just have to, take the idea that you have now, get it on paper, finish it, and then move on to the next thing. And if you can't think of anything, just, draw anything. Draw a character just eating ice cream and enjoying ice cream. It doesn't even need to be funny. Just finish is, my number one advice. Just do it.
Yeah.
I agree. And also make it seen. Don't keep it to yourself, and
Yes.
have people
Show people.
Oh yeah, and the fact that my our comics are mostly on social networks, the immediate response from the audience is what keeps me going, really.
Oh yeah. It's definitely shaped the sort of comics I end up making, because we've all talked about different sorts of comics we would like to make, but there's a difference between the stuff you want to make and the stuff that people are wanting to see, and sometimes you kind of have to follow your audience and make the stuff that they are hungry for. And
I feel like that just leads to depression, honestly. Because, I don't know,
I could make all the silly, weird, off-the-wall comics that are quirky that only me and my brother think are funny. I wanted, but that doesn't, no one's gonna read them. I'm not gonna, I don't know, no one's gonna pay me money.
But you'll be happy.
I would stop. I would stop doing it.
I hope one day I get to make weird, quirky, just whatever comics, but right now I have a job. And the job is that I make a certain kind of media with certain subject matter for a certain audience.
We've been talking a lot about that while we were alone here.
It's frustrating as an artist. Again, also going back to the thing that defines you as, say, being trans or whatever. But there's so many other things we would like to work on. But it's almost like
but I don't know. With me personally, I feel like when it comes to trans issues, there's so many other people who are saying things more articulately than I am. I just feel like there's better resources out there than me, because that to
but no one does them with your style, Jessica.
There's 10,000 people on Facebook that would disagree.
Yeah, but I don't know.
Well,
but I don't even think of myself as an activist. That's the thing, it's I don't.
Well, art is political. You don't escape that.
Well, this is something that I feel very strongly about. There's sort of 3 branches of enacting change. We'll finish up, I guess. But I'm going to say my thing. I'm smart. I get to talk.
Why can't we just keep? Yeah. Why can't we keep doing the radio show for hours on end?
We can if you want. I don't think anyone's on after us. We can just talk.
Oh, and people will still be able to hear us.
Probably. I don't think they're going to play music over us. If they are, they already are. So.
Oh.
I don't think they are. But you know what? It gets recorded anyways.
Here, well, hey, if you're still listening, you should go on Sophie's page and ask us a question. And
yeah, we'll talk.
There's already a lot of that, though.
Honestly, though, this is probably what we're going to do a lot of this afternoon, so I don't mind talking extra. I was going to say, though, this idea of, there's sort of these 3 prongs of enacting change, where there's, direct activism, the people who are out there protesting and making people aware that way. There's politics, because these are the people who ultimately make laws. It's kind of important, ultimately, for all its problems. And then there's the media. The media changes public opinion in a way that activism can't always. And between those 3 things, I kind of feel like that's how change comes about. So even if you're not trying to be an activist, if you're making media that is making people aware and changing public opinion, that's good.
It's a thing that it is political. It is a political stance to be trans in this world, in our society, and creating art that's not about trans issues. It's a political stance in itself, so you cannot escape it. Sadly, that's something it would be so nice to just be able to make comics about whatever and not having it impact our lives. But that's
no, you're absolutely right. I say even if I just continue to make comics that had nothing to do with transness, people would politicize that somehow.
Well, you get accused of running away.
No, but it's a stance. It's a stance in itself. Even not talking about trans issues is a stance. Is a political stance.
Mm-hmm. I'm becoming more and more interested, in there's Trans Girl Next Door, very popular comic, and her comic.
That comic.
It's very often,
awesome.
It's just fun, and she's making jokes often about the typical experience of being trans.
It's still political.
It is. It ends up being political in that way, but I kind of like that. It's just it's the Trans Girl Next Door. She's just a normal girl. She's having fun and laughing at her own life experiences. And I think it's got a very important place in the art community.
And not only that, but I feel like she talks about stuff that I'm afraid to talk about. She'll talk about, a lot of people, they'll say, oh, you know what I like about you is that you don't say things that are obvious, and, I don't really talk about private parts or anything, and, she just goes there and talks about, makes comics about tucking and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. I can't do that kind of thing.
I wouldn't be able to handle it.
Yeah, no, exactly. It's just because it's my own personal issues.
But that's great that there's somebody out there doing that.
I know. I love it. It makes me happy that, and in fact, I want more transgender people to make comics. So, I feel like there's more stuff to read and more perspectives.
Oh, yeah.
Because
people try to Eurokize us.
Yeah, because that's another thing too. Something
oh my God.
There was some.
Don't read that one. Read this one.
Yeah,
instead.
don't read.
Read them all.
Read them all.
Read comics.
Yeah, just but not only that too, but how many times have I been accused of quote speaking for the whole community?
Oh my God, that happened.
Yeah, that happened to you just the other day. It happened to me earlier this week, and I'm not speaking for anyone but myself.
Yeah.
All of the comics that I talk about trans issues in, literally stem from personal experiences.
Oh, yeah.
Mhm.
You know, I'm not creative enough to like make this stuff up.
Oh, stop it.
You know, but seriously, it's like an issue. You know that like, you know, yeah, it's you know, so yeah. If you're an aspiring transgender cartoonist who wants to talk about your experiences, I say go for it. Try to finish it. You know, send it to, you know, Manic Pixie Nightmare Girls, and I'll share it on my public. You know, seriously, I'll share it on my personal Facebook page and everything. You know, if
Only do that if it's a 9-year-old.
See, I'm finding though, like a lot of, not just through the show, but just the way we talk and our friends now, I'm wanting to build up the trans comic scene.
Also,
I want
yeah,
this to become a powerful force.
Up and Out is another great comic that you know that you know she doesn't, you know, she just started talking about trans issues recently. But yeah, that's another great comic that people should read, and she's just a great cartoonist, and she's funny. That's another good one. But yeah, if you're trans and you want to be a cartoonist, do it.
Do it,
Take some pressure off the rest of us.
please.
We're all stronger together too, right? That's
yeah.
how I feel. It's just easier if we're all kind of making a vibrant community and supporting one another and not cannibalizing one
my
another for no
God.
reason.
No, I think we need that. I think we need to just tear each other apart over
Petty bullshit.
over like, you know, yeah, I'm just gonna look for the worst thing I can in you, and then just focus on that, and then
Oh, God.
that's the way to do things.
You know, one of my
I'm
rules.
being sarcastic, by the way.
One of my rules.
Morgan
I always.
M. Page.
Pardon?
Morgan M. Page
Oh,
rule.
she's great.
You know her rule though.
Which one?
The rule of not tearing down publicly other trans women.
Yeah, like
I
basically.
follow.
I live by that.
No, it's such good advice that, like, you know, because, like, trans women, like I was saying earlier in the podcast, like, you know, like, trans women just, like, get called out more than other people, and it's, like, duh, it's trans misogyny, you know, and, you know, Morgan Page's thing, you know, like, even if, like, there's another trans woman who just, like, she's, like, wrong and being an asshole and all the
Being
rest.
Caitlyn Jenner. Oh.
Yeah, you know,
Sorry,
but
kiddo.
yeah, no, but seriously, like I'm not gonna go out of my way to publicly drag another trans woman. You know why? Because there's gonna be hundreds of people who are ready and willing to do that.
Yeah.
Right. I never spoke about Caitlyn Jenner in my comics. That's the reason why.
Oh yeah, like and it's like, oh wow, like, and that's another thing too. It's like, you know, like dragging Caitlyn Jenner is like shooting fish in a barrel. She's like a rich Republican, you know, no kidding. Like, duh, she's not gonna be good on things, you know.
You know, she tries. She has made some financial contributions and stuff. Like, she's not pure evil.
Oh, yeah,
she's not
no.
my favorite either. But whatever. Like,
No, but the idea is that there's enough people that
Yeah,
are
there-
trying to drag us
yeah,
in the
you
mud.
need more
that-
people.
Yeah, we don't need to do it ourselves.
What I was gonna say is my little rule. This kind of just extends to everything. Is anything I read on the internet, I try to read in the nicest possible tone of voice I can. It's so easy to take someone and think, oh, they're being an asshole. Like, they're not trying to be an asshole. They're typing.
I don't know. I feel like there are quite a few malicious people on the
There are,
internet.
Actually, you know,
Absolutely.
before showing you this, I actually banned a couple of people.
Of course, he had to, though. But that's just a sad fact of being trans on the internet.
But yeah, it's like, you know, I don't know. But for me, it always just like hurts more when it comes from the left. You know,
we're
like,
supposed to be friends. Also, when it comes from, say,
well, just like argue.
feminists.
Yeah, or feminists. It's like, argue with me in good faith. If you're arguing with me in good faith, like, I'll talk to you. But when it's like obvious, you're just like,
Yeah.
wanna like,
Arguing about my existence too.
yeah,
Oh, yeah.
or just not even that, but just like, you know, like, I can't tell you how many times like people have said, oh, well, Jessica has said this, and I'm like, I never said that. Like, people just straight up make up stuff that you say, you know, and it's ridiculous.
Want me to refresh it?
Go for it, honey.
Yeah, refresh it. See if there's more questions.
Yeah, I said when I showed you this, but people on the radio didn't see what this was, but I was talking about the questions we were receiving. Oops.
Or yeah, you know, it's like, oh gosh, I had a.
Why don't you pick one, Sophie? I mean, or I
Oh
can.
well, no, she just handed it to
Fine,
me.
we'll just do your job for you. There's a lot of questions for Sophie in particular, and this is your first time on the show, so that's fine. We can talk. How frequently do you dye your hair?
Twice a year?
Twice a year?
Yeah.
It's probably good for it to not to dye it too much.
Yeah, I tried. That's why I kind of try to grow it out just to give my hair a break. My curls were better before I went into summer hair. That's what we call that in the teachers community. We call them summer hair because we can't have that while we work.
Oh yeah.
But now I live with
Wait,
summer.
they didn't let you dye your hair?
I have summer hair year long now that I quit teaching.
There's a question here for me in particular, and so I'm feeling, and I know this person. They're very active. They're lovely. They're always trying to ask me stuff and be cool on the page. So I'm going to answer their question. It's there's a comic I did about basically how when you're trans and you see another person that you can see as trans, it's kind of like taboo to like go over to them and be like, hey, you're transgender. Like, it's kind of like telling them that they don't pass.
Yeah.
And so I did a comic about that, about how sad it is because you'd really like to reach out and but you can't, and so you're just kind of alone. And I did a comic in follow-up to that, and they asking me what made me do the follow-up to it. And the follow-up was where it's the same thing, all the same lines from the comic, where talking about how you can't ask them if they're trans and all that. And there's this girl on the bus, and I'm sitting across from her, and I can kind of sense that she's trans. And eventually I'm like, fuck this, and go over to her and say hi to her. What made me do that was a real thing that happened. And I'm actually really super good friends with her, and she's really cool. She also used to have a radio show, so I kind of like to have her on the show.
That's so cool.
Yeah, I'd love to have her on. She knows tons about jazz music. She's great. And I encourage that, by the way. There's lots of ways you can come over to a person that you think maybe is like you without drawing attention to the fact that they're like you, and just be friends.
That is so tricky because, like, the thing is, it's just like, because like sometimes, like, well, like, because we all know, like, what quote looks trans, you can mess up and be like, oh, oh yeah, I'm sure that person's transgender, and then they're not. Or, for instance, like, when I had a booth for Trans Pride, a couple years ago, and someone, came up, and my partner, who is cisgender, was sitting next to me, and like they went up to her and they're like, "Oh my gosh, I love your comics so much."
Gosh.
And I'm like, actually, I'm the artist. I'm the artist.
That's hilarious.
But were they cis people, by the way?
No, there was another trans woman, and that's, and the thing is, it's like sometimes
Wouldn't they go to the one who looks like the character in the comic?
I know. I had a ponytail and glasses on.
I usually try to have like a lot of accessories on me, like just a pin or something that says trans.
Yeah.
With this this voice, and yeah, usually I won't reach out if the person doesn't have anything, but like if they do, like I'm always like, hey, nice button or nice pin. Mm-hmm. I like your shirt.
Oh, so you go and compliment them on, like,
yeah.
In the case of my friend,
works.
it was like she has an absolutely amazing sense of style, and I wanted to come over and talk to her about her great clothes, and we just kind of got talking, and then typically I out myself as trans to them,
yeah,
and it's up to them if they want to talk about it or not, and it's just like, it's a really hard world out there, even where I live, where people are super cool and nice, but we don't get to make friends like ourselves all that much in person. And I think it's a good thing to do, to just, like, have a community and just know, like, I'm there for you. We don't even have to be friends, but...
Oh, yeah. Having trans friends definitely changed my life as a teenager.
Too. Well, even just, like, when I first started out transition, I was, like, I kind of tried to hide. I probably had a lot of internalized trans misogyny. Mm-hmm. And I just wanted to transition and pass and get it over with.
Not have trans friends that could potentially out you.
Yeah. But once I started making trans friends, both in real life and on the internet, I just felt so much better about myself and life, and I felt like I had a community. I never felt like I belonged anywhere before, and now I finally do.
Oh.
It's you know what? It's really great to have you two ladies as friends, by the way.
Oh, look at you.
Yeah, I'm pretty cool.
You guys are pretty cool. You're my coolest friends by far.
And cute.
Sophie, you're seeming like you're gearing up to play us another song. Is that what you're hoping to do?
I don't know.
You don't have to.
The guitar was there, and I have like this partition right there. So maybe I could do that.
Yeah, let's do you want to play us off? We'll do one song and say goodbye.
Oh.
I mean, we can talk forever too, I suppose.
We can talk, and then I'll end it with the song.
Sure. Okay.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Is there any more questions?
Oh, there's tons of them.
Let's get some viewer questions. They deserve it.
Notice me stand by.
Well,
No,
you did, right? You noticed them.
I
right?
did. Thank you, Sarah.
Do you know what's funny? I got that shit, like the senpai. Is that how you pronounce it? How do you pronounce
Senpai,
it?
yeah.
Senpai, okay.
That's what we said in karate class.
Yeah, because like it was like funny. Like I was just like on Facebook, and this like random person like wrote a comment that I thought was hilarious. So I just like they were also trans women, so I like added them, and then they were all excited. They're like, "Senpai noticed me, Senpai noticed me," and I'm like, "Oh no,
Oh,
oh
dear.
jeez, I just make cartoon. I'm not senpai."
That's a big deal, though. Like, it's really cool to people when you make art. It doesn't matter what it is.
And you make it public because it's so harsh out there on the internet.
Yeah, it's bad.
Yes.
The internet is it is the
The
comment section is the devil's playground.
I was having to explain that to the Strange Label producer before the show. Just like, maybe get ready for,
Oh my god.
some stuff. Because, like, I don't know if you're aware of this, but when you're trans on the internet, you attract this sort of thing.
Oh,
You're
yeah, like,
really?
right-
We had no idea. Like, cis people have no idea.
Or these like right wing
Fascists?
these white nationalists. I'm sorry, not being PC, alt right forums on the internet that just like like there's some of them that are just like, haha, autistic people are funny and trans people are funny, and you're like, shut it's like, are you that big of a loser where like you got to make fun of like autistic people and transgender people to like.
That's so great. Okay, hear me out here. It's so great that they do that because it shows that they're full of shit. They can't even pretend they're good guys if they're doing that sort of thing.
I know, right? That's like the thing too. You see these people on the internet, and they always like, some maybe they're a fan of superheroes, and like, I always thought, like, we were talking last night. It'd be like funny to like make a comic with all these classic superheroes, but they're saying like, like bigoted things towards minorities. Like you can't say, it's like Batman, like punching out a trans woman, telling her to
Using
man
the
up or
wrong
whatever.
wrong
Yeah, or like,
bathroom.
yeah, and just like, and yeah,
Well, like,
but some of them, like, you see, like, some of them are proud to be evil. They're like, haha, I'm a bad guy, and
And I'm
like
saving
it.
civilization from
Yes.
degeneracy,
Oh, I know, and that's the thing too. It's like a lot of people genuinely think that like this trans thing is brand new when like there is like
so much
well, like
anthropological
Greek
evidence.
Greek goddesses that are transgender that like
Before
that
But you know what? I think it's really fascinating whenever I get to learn more about these sort of ancient examples of this condition existing, because, come on, it's been around forever. But even if it didn't, the fact is we're human beings who exist right now, and we get rights. Like, you don't just because it's a new idea or a new thing doesn't mean it's
Just
not
because we talk about it
real.
now instead of like
Well, that was
regretting it.
That was a big thing that I got backlash on, was a comic I did talking about language, especially for non-binary people. We never had the words to express our identities before, and that was basically suppressing thought. Like, it was like in 1984 where they were like simplifying language to keep people from expressing revolutionary ideas. And that's basically what goes on now. And they say, no, that's not a real gender. That's not a real thing.
Yeah, it's
Oh
like
yeah, that's
right.
like so funny. Like same thing with non-binary identities have been around in indigenous cultures for all of humanity, and it was like basically white colonialism that wiped it out and replaced it with this gender binary that we have now. And like, and then these a-holes and the alt right forums are just like they just get so like they're either really angry about it or they're just like giddy. They think it's so funny and blah blah blah. And have you ever noticed that like they use just the word snowflake as an insult? They use that as an insult, and like you think about what is that? What does that mean? Like we use snowflake to talk about individuality. So like to them being an individual is like an insult. And the thing is like we're all individuals whether we like it or not. Like you could want to conform to like your gender stereotypes or whatever these alt-right douchebags want to conform to, or want others to conform to. But like the thing is, it's like that's not going to take away people's like individuality. We're all snowflakes, and the fact that they use that as an insult just speaks so much about who they are.
Oh,
You know,
yeah.
they just want, like, what do they want? Everyone to be exactly the same and
Except-
think the same as them.
You know what? These people will totally be like those, especially if you're like talking about like white people or something. They'll be like, "No, we're not all like that," or "Not all men."
Oh
And
yeah.
it's like,
no.
so which is
Yes.
it? Are you an individual or are you a member of a collective? Like, I'm very individualistic. I think I don't like being judged for, say, if a trans woman does something wrong, I don't want you to say, "Oh yeah, all trans women are bad." And same with pretty much anything. But like, at some point, like you know what I mean? Like they're trying to say you expressing yourself in this individual way is bad, but I get to express myself in whatever individual way I want. Like it's hypocritical, I guess, with everything in the end, right? But I
Did
don't
you
know.
want another question? Or...
Sure, let's go for it. We can do
Okay.
whatever the hell we want.
Yeah, so Isabel says, not a question, just want to say you three are awesome.
Oh, I know her.
That's us.
She's a
That's
wonderful. Oh, you know what?
What?
It might be using the wrong pronoun. I'm not sure. I don't know them super well. I'm gonna confirm that, and I'm gonna apologize to them if we screwed up.
So, Rebecca asks, what does trans self-care looks like to you?
That's a hard one.
What about you?
I try to be really nice to myself. I say nice things to myself when I look in the mirror. I don't talk about it a whole lot. I probably should make a comic about it at some point, but I've had an eating disorder basically my whole life. And I have rules about when I look in the mirror. I don't look in the mirror at night, only in the morning. I make sure to say good things to myself in the mirror because the last thing I need to do is reinforce negative thought patterns by being an asshole to myself. I just try to also phrase things like if I screw up at something, oh, that's good. We didn't screw up. Um, if I mess up at something though, I try not to hold it against myself. I say, okay, next time I'm gonna get it, or warming up this time, or like I get a lot of that from working as a karate teacher before, trying to be positive with students. It's just basically be nice to yourself. Don't give yourself any extra grief or harm.
Yeah, I'm pretty bad with that, actually.
Yeah, same here. I'm always giving myself a hard time.
The question is, what does trans self-care looks like to you?
Oh, geez. Oh, trans, like, self-care is being unapologetic and just, just being yourself. Like, if, like, a lot of the times, like, trans women, we struggle with femininity. Like, we want to be more femme. And living in a world that, like, kind of demonizes femininity in a lot of ways or doesn't take it as seriously or, or kind of like just like sexualizes femininity. That's like a huge thing. It's like how femininity is like sexualized. Like if it's Friday night and I go out of my way to like make myself look super super nice, like full makeup and everything, like I get sexualized more. And like meanwhile, like like a guy will dress up in masculine clothes that and like that might be sexy. It's like it's, I'm not saying like you could be sexy, but just like how feminine is like just automatically
it's a different kind of sexualization
yeah
too,
yeah because we project it on children, like like little girls, like like they like if they're wearing quote makeup too early, like people are sexualizing that. And like, are you kidding me? Like makeup is just like fun. Making your eyes look bigger like doesn't have to be sexualized. And just like, and it's kind of gross how like people just like automatically like sexualize like dresses and skirts and makeup and stuff.
That's how we can't really escape being political through our art, because like we're so affected by those issues that it's really hard to just not talk about it.
Yeah, and but yeah, like I don't know, I feel like for trans self-care is like honestly trying not to let what others think affect you, even though that's impossible. And everyone says it's like, I don't care what others think, but let's get real. When people are telling,
I don't care at all about what those people think.
Yeah, but what other, but that's like ridiculous because we're a social species, and what other people think equals like how they treat us. So like not caring what others think is kind of ridiculous because like if bunch of people think you're, an asshole, they're gonna treat you like an asshole,
Well, yeah, so much of it is just like we want to be seen as the person that we are internally, right? And
Well, for me, the biggest issue, my biggest issue with trans self care is that I always feel like there's so much to do, and I can't afford a break, and I'll end up, working from dawn to dusk, and not even,
make a dent in the ocean, sort of thing.
yeah,
There's always more to do.
exactly. And so I'm really working hard on this right now because I feel like I always try to give as much as I can because there's just no way it's gonna be enough at the end, because
No.
there's just so much to do.
It's not that, I feel like I shouldn't even be talking about trans self-care too, because like I'm the worst at self-care. Like, I mean, for me, self-care, like exercise is like swinging the Wii Sports baseball bat, for Christ's sake. It's just
She
like,
woke me up this way the other day.
oh, but yeah, like, it's like seriously, like I go days on end without leaving my apartment, and, like, I wasn't very happy, honestly, until, like, my friends here showed up and I'm like, oh, yay, I got company now, and now I'm feeling a lot better. Like, I've been struggling with depression big time, and, having my friends over has been really great, actually.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, it feels good.
This actually reminds me of one thing I was dealing with. I've been recovering from surgery this month. I've been staying with my mom because she's just got a really cool place on an island. But being in the house that I grew up in, where I actually had so much emotional baggage, it's made it really hard for me. And like even looking in those mirrors, I feel like I look worse in those mirrors. And it's almost about trying to create a positive space for yourself where you are able to feel good about yourself and that's free of a lot of the baggage that maybe you're carrying around with you. So if you're finding yourself unhappy, sometimes just doing little things to change your surroundings, even if you can't leave where you are, obviously, right? But just like change it and make it yours. Reclaim your space so that you can feel good in it instead of being forced to live in a space you're not comfortable in,
Yeah.
Yeah, do we have any more on here? Or do we gonna
Any other questions?
stand
Ask
out?
us some questions, people. Come on, what are you doing?
Oh, there's
Tons
of
now,
them.
right?
Yeah. So, what is the best thing a cis person can do to be an ally?
Oh, hey, the best thing a cis person could do to be an ally is actually stand up for trans rights when you see someone being a trans misogynist or a cis sexist. Actually say, hey, that's not cool, and that hurts trans people. Like, because, like, our haters are very active. They,
People think that by, like, not doing anything about it, not talking about it, it'll make it go away. But when
Like the whole racism thing.
yeah, you have to talk about it. Talk about it with your friends and talk about it with your family members and even coworkers if it comes up. I know, and then that's like the scariest part. Like standing up for trans rights in the workplace.
Oh yeah.
People
It's
are
scary.
so afraid that other people will judge them for talking about it. Will that make me gay, or what will people think if I stand up for trans rights or for trans women? It's always seen as this very
it's like it taints
dangerous.
But yeah, like like I was saying, like our haters actively hate. Like there's like there's like web forums about Sophie and how like she's the worst just for being trans. But like our allies, it's mostly passive. They're like, I don't hate trans people, or I support trans people, or I'll share this trans comic. Share our comics. Oh yeah, another way to be an ally is also like don't pay us money.
That'd be nice.
That's why I like you, Jessica.
Yeah, get my Patreon, by the way, is no. But
that's a big thing though, just even with just like artists. I say this almost like a lot of the shows that I do. If you know somebody that does something that you think is good, tell them. Let them know that you appreciate it. This goes not just for trans artists, of course, but just people.
Artists
activists.
are very insecure people, and they need your reassurance.
Because it feels like you're making art a lot of the time, and if you don't have an audience or you don't get a huge response to it, you feel like you're just howling into the wasteland and no one's listening to you, and it can be very lonely on the internet. And it really means a lot. Every piece of fan mail, every like, every share goes light years with an artist.
You know, and that's like so funny too, because I'll get messages from people, and like you could tell they're afraid they're bugging me or whatever. They're like, I don't want to bug you, but, and I'm like, you're not bugging me. Like,
this is like
if
highlight of my fucking day now.
You know, well, no, not only that, but I mean, if I have time to answer, you know, like a message, I love answering messages. But you know, but then if I don't, you know, like I have to ignore it for a little bit, and then sometimes I forget about it. Like, that's another thing. Don't take things personally either. You know, like if you know, if you send me a message and I ignore you, don't take that personally.
Yeah, if you're like the 50th person to ask me the same question
Wow,
about trans issues on that day, I might be pissed. I might delete your question. Anything might happen. Don't take it personal.
That's the one thing, though, that I think a lot of, like, you know, cis people who are trying to be allies, or sometimes it's like a little slightly passive-aggressive trolling or whatever, but they ask these questions, and they think they're being helpful, but it's kind of like, you know what, I get asked that question all the goddamn time, and I'm really tired of answering it, and it's also maybe sometimes a little inappropriate that you ask that question, you know, especially like asking about surgery things, and sometimes I know it's tough because, like, here we are saying engage with trans people or whatever, but like sometimes asking questions isn't the right thing to do.
But that's the thing, you know, like, you know, don't, if you do happen to like say something that's like, you know, not right or personal, or like, I'm sorry, not right, or just like something that might just annoy us, you know, don't take it too personal, because like, you know, it's like, we're all just people, and people get annoyed, people don't like know what to say sometimes, and it's okay, you know. And even if like if a trans woman blows up on you and is screaming at you, don't even take that personally, because you know, just like know that that person like is carrying around a lot of trauma and anger for good reason, and like even if like you didn't deserve the scorn that she put on you personally, like, you know, just like try to be understanding of that, because I know there's been times personally where like, you know, like I've lashed out at cis people who totally didn't deserve it, you know, but like, you know, like I was in a place where like I was just like super angry about this stuff, you know, and
this goes for everybody though. Like anyone who lashes out, there's a very good chance that you've touched a nerve, you've triggered them in a popular term. But you know what, I think
But yeah, I think that like one question, it's okay, but people have to realize that we get those questions all the time, and it's really the sum of them that makes this process dehumanizing and objectifying,
Like-
and they're part of it without even being aware of that, and I feel that's something we need to talk about more.
one mosquito doesn't do a whole lot, but when you got a whole swarm of mosquitoes eating you alive, it gets pretty annoying pretty quickly.
Yeah, and then when we take one out and like we're mad at it, and like they're like, oh, but I'm just one mosquito, I didn't do anything, you know, and it's just
yeah, and don't get defensive either. If like, you know, that's like another thing too. So I get so nervous about like, you know, if like someone, you know, says something trans misogynistic, you know, sometimes I just get so nervous about confronting it, because like so often, you know, you just like, they get defensive, and then they dig their nails in, and they're like, I wasn't meaning to be this way, and blah blah blah, and it's just like, you know, fine, whatever. Like, you're perfect. You're not trans misogynistic whatsoever, which I know is BS, because, you know, like, I'm sure, like, you know, other, you know, like, you know, the stuff is like put on us like from society, like at all angles. Like, you know, you can't turn on the TV without seeing a trans joke. Of course you're trans misogynistic. Like, you know, you just don't realize it. If you don't think you're trans misogynistic, you don't realize it, you know? And so like, you know, and that's okay, you know?
Yeah, people don't realize that the whole society is trans misogynist, and
yeah, just because we live in a white hetero patriarchy.
And people think that because they don't have negative feelings towards trans people, that makes them kind of, you know, makes them protected against those things. But it's not. It's a whole general system that. You know,
yeah, you know, it's like it's like, and it's impossible to leave that system, even no matter how like knowledgeable you are about
even,
like social, you know, like I was saying either, you know, it's just like, you know, like even us, like, you know, like everybody has the stuff that they need to work on, you know, even the most like, you know,
it's getting heated.
Yeah, it is getting.
We're getting into
but
it.
No, but seriously,
we're going to keep
even
it
the
light.
most knowledgeable.
Yeah, that's what we said.
You know,
It's
people
fine, whatever.
like, you know, like, because I see a lot of people on Facebook, like, you know, they're like great on every social justice issue, but then all of a sudden on like one thing, they're like completely blowing it. And then, like, when they get, you know, when someone is nicely, you know, saying, like, oh, yeah, you're getting this wrong, and it's like, no, I'm not, you know, it's just like, show some humility. You know, everybody's wrong sometimes. We're just animals, we're just people.
Well,
Like,
such a
no one's
loaded term, wrong, right? Like, but I know what
but
you
yeah,
mean.
but
Like,
I mean, like, but you people are, you know,
incorrect. They made a mistake. They.
but it's you know, and it's and I feel like it's fine. Like, I would rather, you know, someone just be like, oh yeah, I was being a trans misogynist, and I'm gonna try hard to like not be like that anymore, than, you know, being like, I wasn't being that way, and you're a jerk for saying I was, and I'm gonna take my ball and go home.
I've had so many exchanges online where somebody said something that kind of hurt me, and I was about to respond in a really, like, defensive
Yeah.
way, and I stopped myself, and then the conversation just ended up going a completely different direction, and we became friends. I know that's not going to happen all the time. Probably not going to happen with a neo-Nazi, chances are, but there's often times where you're about to lash out. Try and check yourself and just be like, I know I'm hurt, but maybe this person,
Yeah.
they didn't mean to.
I don't engage anymore on social networks. I just
save
like,
yourself the grief.
yeah. Usually I just use like monosyllabic words. I'm just like no or okay or ugh.
Facial
That's all.
expressions.
That's all.
Yeah.
Okay is 2 syllables, not 1.
Oh my god, I'm so
It's close enough. Do we have any more on the fan questions?
You want more?
Yeah, sure. Let's do it forever. This is now the Infinity Podcast.
Well, you know, we could finish out the hour.
Yeah,
if we have.
I guess I gotta dilate at some point.
Well, there's questions specifically for me.
Sure.
Yeah,
I just assume the majority on your page are gonna be for you, but
How did you get so aching pretty and talented?
Aww.
Actually, I don't know. How did I do that?
magic.
Yeah, probably.
It's gonna be a hard question to answer
well,
yourself.
You know, I've been working with kids most of my life. I started babysitting at 11, and like I've been working in summer camp since I was like 15. And I like the way I interact with children is that I try to use the way I looked at things when I was a kid. You know, I try to use that a lot, and that brings sparkles to our eyes, and I think people should do that. That's how I look at things, and yeah, people tell me that kind of shows when I don't know when I look at things, I guess.
This is kind of making me curious. Where did the pink hair come from? When did that start?
I don't know, but when I was 11, actually, there was this manga that came out, Gravitation, where this guy had pink hair, and I was just like, oh my god, this is so cool, I want that for me. And yeah, I did.
Nice.
Okay, here's another interesting question. What is each of your favorite comics made by the other two?
Oh.
I love that. Where was that? I don't see it.
It's a brand new question that just had.
Cool. Want to start?
There's, the one, I think I talked to you about it one time that I love the face. I think it was about, I know exactly the one I'm going to talk about. My favorite one by you, Sophie, is the one where the guy is like, tired of all these made up genders and words. I want, good pure words like nature gave to us. But, it's like, come on, all of this stuff is just like humans trying to label things, and like that means it can be revised, that means it can be reworked, and there's no such thing as a real word and a fake word. Like freaking Shakespeare made up how many words that we use now. Like this idea that there's real and fake words. Like just the guy's facial expression and the sparkles that go along with him. That's gotta be my favorite one I've seen of yours. Jessica's. The dysphoria demon bug. That one speaks to truth. That one's so...
I was thinking of that one too.
I hate that little bastard so much.
There's like 3 or 4 comics. It's like I try to not do too many of those. I feel like, like if I do like only 1 or 2 of those comics a year, like it would just, I don't know, have like a better impact, I guess, but yeah, it's like kind of funny how I made gender dysphoria a character in my comics. People love those ones too, and do you know what's funny though, like cis people love that one too for some reason. I just noticed, like, especially the one where Jessica is on the ground crying that she wishes she had a uterus. Like, for some reason, cis people just love that one, and I can't figure out why. But as far as, I really don't have, I don't know my favorite comic of Bria's, honestly. But I know my favorite Sophie comic is the one where they're all sitting on the couch laughing at trans misogynistic jokes. And, and then, like, the third panel is, like, the, child who is trans inside, like, just terrified and scared. That's easily my favorite.
That's a hard quote.
And then as far as one of your comics go, Bria, I'm actually on your page, like, looking through your comics, because I know I, like, read your comics, but I just,
They're all so great, it's hard to choose, right?
It's like funny. I don't read, I know it's like funnier here and you see all my cartoon books all over the place. But like, I don't read too many of my friends' webs comics. I feel bad.
It's hard to keep up.
Well, it's not even that. It's like, it's just like, I don't know what it is. It's,
Oh, that's Charlie.
There's dogs here, by the way.
There's, dogs here.
That is what happens when you do a show on vacation and go overtime.
I'm currently looking at my own page for which one that I shared recently that I like.
There's a Life of Bria comic that I shared that I really like, but I forgot which one it was. I'm trying to find it right now.
Do you remember the premise at all?
Yeah, I do, but it's like hard for me to articulate. It's here it is. Bam. This is the one I like the favorite. Yeah, it's they don't have any titles ever, but it's basically the one where you're talking about how before your transition you're just were engulfed with envy, and kind of angry towards cis women up until you transitioned, and how once you dealt with your gender issues, that like all of a sudden that envy feeling and resentment towards cis women just like disappeared, and
still a little bit.
But yeah, I feel like that's like like personally, that's like what pushed me to transition myself. Is just like I've always felt envy towards women, and then like once it was getting to the point where like it was making me angry towards them for no reason, I was like, okay, well now I have to deal with this.
It kind of it shows you like, oh, there's something going on here. This is real that I'm getting this upset about. Like, for me at least, it got to the point where I didn't like going outside because I might see a woman and I get all depressed and pissed off. And at that point you're kind of like, what the fuck is my life?
Yeah, and like I completely relate to feeling like that, and like I would just like be at home at night and just be like, what is your problem? Why are you feeling like this? And like in the back of my mind I knew why I was feeling like this, but
it's the most terrifying thing in the world to admit to yourself.
Right? But exactly, but then the moment I admit it to myself that I'm like, okay, I'm a transgender person, like all of those, most of the feelings of like all the resentment definitely melted away. Like sometimes the envy still creeps up because, but like how can you not envy someone who is like has things easier than you, to some extent. Like most of my envy now towards, cis women has to do with like society doesn't question their womanhood, and society, it stems from like that kind of thing, like it's like as far as the woman who I am, I like the woman who I am, so that's pretty rad.
I feel pretty much the same way.
I think my favorite comic from Jessica is the one where Jessica and Gwen are watching TV and they're like, "Oh, this show is good actually," and like, wait, it's gonna arrive, and then they're partying because they didn't do
Oh
a
yeah, yeah. We're like,
misogynist joke.
we're yeah. No, no. Do you know what's like really funny? That actually stemmed from me like watching TV, and there is it was a recent episode of the Simpsons, and the Simpsons are kind of known for like trashing trans women. And they were setting up this joke that seemed like it could have been a trans misogynistic
Yeah,
joke.
yeah, and you see it coming,
And then,
like,
and I'm like, oh my gosh, they're gonna do another transphobic joke. I can't believe this. I'm so sick of this, But then they didn't do it, and then it ended up being a different joke that was funny. I forgot which, but then like we celebrated that they didn't do a trans joke.
Oh, wow.
and I think my favorite comic from Bria is the one where there's this scientist looking at chromosomes and being like, "Ooh, why chromosomes? I'm not into guy."
Yeah, these people that get so obsessed with that.
Chromosomes. Oh my god, chromosomes don't lie.
Oh yeah, that one. I love that one of yours where
he's getting all turned on.
Yeah, he's sexualizing chromosomes under a microscope, and then that's hilarious.
Well, these people that are like, I'm not attracted to trans women. It's like, really? If you had there's a drop dead gorgeous babe totally into her, and then you find out she's trans, magically you're not into her anymore. Like, it's kind of like that doesn't say much about the woman. That says kind of more about you.
No, it's like funny. I can't count how many times I've gotten that where people are just like, I'm just not attracted to transgender people, and then it's just like.
I have news for you, honey. You've been attracted to lots of transgender people, and you didn't know it.
Oh my god.
Yeah, because that's the thing, because like how many times like have you seen, like. Like there'll be like a transgender model that no one knows is trans, and then like years after her retirement, they're like, oh yeah, by the way, she's transgender.
Or during her freaking career,
yeah, and there's no joke, no doubt in my mind that people who say I'm not attracted to trans women have like looked at her and felt it. Yeah, and the thing is too, it's like I go to bars and guys hit on me, guys ask me out, and I'm sure. There's a chunk of them that would, wouldn't want anything to do. Yeah, would.
So often.
It's painful for sure. The moment they find out about it, they're like, I can't deal with this. And like,
you did deal with it.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
I think a lot of people they're not mature enough to deal with that sort of thing. They're afraid they'll be thought of as gay in some way for some reason. It's just a lot of it stemming out of ignorance and again their own emotional baggage. It's not easy out there, that's for sure.
Let's see, is there any more? I'm looking at the list here. Is there any other
We've been down here for 2 hours.
I know, almost 2 hours.
Do you want to try and go the whole way, or you want to play out soon?
I don't know what else to say, honestly. I'm done.
Yeah, you had like a whole page of questions for us that we...
Well, let's do one more. Let's field one more. And then
from yours.
Oh, yeah, do you have... Yeah, I didn't even advertise this on my Facebook.
We'll see if anyone...
Because I'm always super embarrassed. I'm like, oh, God, I don't want people to hear me
I meant from
the
your
radio.
preparation.
Oh, me, yeah. I close my Facebook, of course, because it'll make noises otherwise. Is there one that was directed more to you rather than a broad discussion topic that'll go on for freaking ever? Oh, one thing I really want to talk about, maybe we can wrap it up quickly, is that the importance of casually trans media. Just like stuff that's not about being trans. It just happens to have a trans person in it because, hey, guess what? Sometimes there's trans people in the world. Like, do you guys feel the same way as that? The sort of work you'd like to see more? I would love to see that more in the world, like, just, like, trans... And like, we were talking about earlier about, like, like, making comics that are about trans stuff versus not, and I feel like, the comics that I make that aren't about trans issues, like, the main character is still a trans woman, and, like, that in some ways, I feel like, and that's, and like, and maybe that's kind of part of the reason why, like, I kind of, like, I'm like, oh, why aren't my non-trans comics, as popular? Because, like, talking about things that are relatable, like, just showing that, like, I'm more than just a trans person, and trans people can be in other relatable situations, like...
Yeah, well, I feel the need to vent out a lot in my comics, we face so many microaggressions and there's issues I need to talk about, me personally, but then I get so many messages from creators asking me how should I do to include a trans character in my novel or movie, or I get all sorts of stuff.
Wow.
And because people feel that when they have a trans character, it necessarily needs to be about transness and trans issues.
Or specifically the transitioning aspect. It's like,
Oh my God,
yeah, it's just like
HRT,
yeah,
surgeries.
yeah,
They
you know,
want
it's
to
like
know everything about it.
it's like so funny because like I hang out with almost nothing but trans people, but like when we're hanging out and doing life, it isn't like constantly our hormones or surgeries or being trans. It's just like like the frustration it is like like just going to the grocery store and them not having what you're looking for or whatever, just like normal stuff
Well,
that
how
everyone
much
else.
of this conversation we had was just talking about comics and art and stuff. Like, that's what most of our conversations ends up being because we're just people.
But also, like, most of the representation that we get in non-trans media, like ours, I totally understand that it talks about transness and trans issues because, well, I don't know for you, but like my target audience is trans people themselves, and I want to talk about stuff that you wouldn't see elsewhere. While when you look at non-trans medias like on TV or anything, there's always this kind of documentary touch to it. Like there's no way we can talk about trans people without it being like this educational setting where we're not really part of the population. We're just this interesting group that needs to be studied and observed. And yeah, there's just no way that people feel like they can relate to us while
And it's like funny, like it's kind of ridiculous. Like it's like even in modern TV shows, if there is a trans person, it's always about them being trans. But like, do you remember? I'm sure a lot of you have seen Twin Peaks. That David Duchovny played a trans woman, and like they did call attention to her transness a little. And this is the early '90s, by the way. So like like it. Like, especially for being the early 90s, they did that so well. Like, they just had a trans woman character coming in and doing her job that she was supposed to do, and like maybe and like there was some snide remarks from side characters here and there, but like it never really dwelled too much on her transness. They she was just doing her job, and like it's sad that like and by the way, it's sad that like even the best representation is still like really questionable. Like because like even like because there's that TV show It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia that's about all those narcissistic jerks, and even that you could tell like the writers of that show they're like trying they have that character and they use the T word to just describe her, but like and it's like all this other awful stereotypes that are in it, but like they're still like you could tell they're like their hearts are like trying to say like, hey, you shouldn't like these are people that you shouldn't like just demonize, but they're still doing it in an awful way, so like even the best quote representation is usually like has very awful aspects to it, like I'm there's there's the even here I'll take a good like something I think is good like that movie One Gun Hill, I think it's called Gun Hill Road. Sorry, Gun Hill Road. It's like a really good movie about this man who's been in prison for a long time and he gets out to find that um, uh, his kid is transitioning, and he's like super upset about it, and they had a real trans woman playing her and she did a wonderful job and everything, and like so much of the content surrounding her was super relatable, except like but then they like kind of just like ramped up a few stereotypes. Like there's this like one scene that doesn't add to the narrative whatsoever where she's getting cement injected into her
oh
butt.
my God, what the fuck?
Yeah, and it's just like
Oops.
and it's just like okay, like that's like based on this like but I could totally see like the writers of that movie like looking up trans stuff on the internet and like running into because the
like
news
extreme
the news sensationalizes there was that a trans woman who died because she was
All right, I saw
doing that.
The wild.
But like that's the thing. That's like such an uncommon thing for trans women to do. Most trans women don't inject cement into their butts, and that's like something we mostly don't do. But but anyways, my point is like even though that I feel like that is like as far as movies made by cis people go, that's like great representation, but still has this like bad stereotype in it, and it's it's just difficult, because and then every trans person is different, like how much bad stuff you could take coming from the media, like how much is your how large is your threshold of shit that you could deal with, like can you be forgiving, towards this, or do you, just write the whole thing off as complete trash,
That's a
and
hard
then that's,
question.
well, I mean that's up to every individual.
Well, my dears, has this been the best show ever?
I actually, the last show that we did together, I couldn't even listen to afterwards. I was so depressed, and I said all this like personal stuff that like I completely regret. But
I didn't say too much personal stuff. I think I
kept
talked about my crush in high school.
It's been a crazy ride.
DuckTales.
Yeah, DuckTales. Oh gosh.
But you guys both did great.
Yeah, I feel like this is a good show.
Super duper glad you're here.
2 hours long too.
Hey,
I hope everyone
You
enjoyed
gonna play
it.
us off, Sophs?
I told my readers on my page that I would be playing a song, maybe.
Mm-hmm. Let's do it. Let's play one more song to play us off, kiddo.
All right, bye everybody.
Okay, so this is the song. I'm from a very small rural town, which is right next to this bigger town, for which Beau Dommage, a band in Quebec, wrote a song, and that's why people know my village. It's because of that song. So
really?
Yeah. So I'm gonna sing it because everybody knows it in my town. Because really. Okay, so it's Dimanche au soir à Châteauguay. Dimanche au soir à Château... Oh yeah, it's in French. À Châteauguay. Les pieds pendants au bout du quai. Les pieds pendants au bout du quai. Les pieds pendants au bout du quai. La rivière joute l'harmonica. Ma blonde se baigne les pieds dans l'eau. Ma blonde se baigne les pieds dans l'eau. Ma blonde se baigne les pieds dans l'eau. C'est plein d'oiseaux qui courent le long de l'eau en chantant leurs chansons d'oiseaux. Wow, 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 c'est plein d'oiseaux qui courent le long de l'eau. Les enfants reviennent en chaleur. Ils ont pêché 3 crabes et soleil. Ils ont pêché 3 crabes et soleil. Ils ont pêché 3 crabes et soleil. Les mouches à feu font des folies. Les wawarons sont pas plus fins. Les wawarons sont pas plus fins. Les wawarons sont pas plus fins. Plus tard on ira sur le sable s'étend pour compter les étoiles filantes. Plus tard on ira sur le sable s'étend. Dimanche au soir à Châteauguay. Les pieds pendants au bout du quai. Les pieds pendants au bout du quai. Les pieds pendants au bout du quai.
Yay!
Thanks.
Thanks for listening, everybody. Have a great night.
See you later. See you in the funny pages.